And we're live. Hello. Thanks so much for everyone for tuning in to today's session with the Merrills. So I'm really excited to kick off today's conversation where it'll be a lot more focused on how do you use Buncee in the interactive classroom, especially in a remote learning environment. But before we get started here, I'm actually going to take a quick moment to share my screen. But as you all chime in, drop it, where you're tuning in from in the chat. It'll be great to see where you're coming in from. I know that we have some folks actually tuning in from all over the US, Canada. We have some folks from Tunisia, Morocco. It's awesome to see you all here. And so with that, let me just take a moment to share my screen, and we'll get started first with our official giveaways for today's session. And so the spirit of the entire event is really focused in on having you all as a community be able to take away different ideas and best practices to really be able to help make learning fun and engaging for each and every one of your students at home. And so for today's giveaway, in that same exact spirit, let us know that you're here. So as you listen into the Merrills' different ideas, their presentation, and all of the different insight that they'll be bringing into they've been bringing into their classroom, let us know that you're here. Take a photo with the group and share one big idea that you've actually taken away from the class, and then share that on Twitter with the hashtag of Buncee Live. Be sure to tag Buncee and tag 3 different friends to let them know what idea that you've been learning from this session. But for those of you that are camera shy here, we also have another giveaway. So what you'll be able to do is, also share your big idea from tuning into this session, post it on Twitter or Facebook, but at the same time, be sure to also tag Buncee, as well as hashtag Buncee Live, as well as Buncee Idea, and then tag 3 friends too. And what you'll be able to also get from this is a subscription for up to 5 educators for your entire school. And so with that, just to repeat, let us know you're here. Share a big idea that you've learned from this session itself. Post it on Twitter, Facebook. Be sure to tag Buncee, as well as 3 friends, and hashtag Buncee Live. And you'll get a subscription for up to 5 educators at your school, and also be able to support your students with that. And then, of course, to support those nice summer nights, you'll also be able to get a Buncee hoodie. And so with that, I'm excited to officially introduce our 2 awesome presenters for today's session, the Merrills. Hey, Joe. Hey, Kristin. How's it going?
Hey! I hope you guys are all doing well. We're super excited to be here with you guys.
We are stoked, and we are so honored to see all of the people who are tuning in. I mean, we've got New York, Kuwait, Washington, Saudi Arabia, Palestine, Washington, Florida. I can't even, Argentina. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, and I will just say that hoodie looks amazing. I'm not sure who designed that, but that is awesome.
That's awesome.
Even though we live in Florida, I would love to have that.
I need that hoodie because someone keeps our house at 30 degrees.
It's not cold enough.
You don't need a hoodie. Stop. Let someone else win a hoodie. Can't wait to see all the pictures and the selfies that you take, and hopefully you take away more than one big idea, but you only have to share one.
And so with that, honestly, I'm really excited for today's conversation, and let me leave you to the stage here.
Thank you.
So let's get started. My name is Joe.
That makes me Kristin.
And we are known as the Merrills. We are both classroom teachers. I teach 1st grade.
And I teach 4th grade.
And we also have this book that we wrote together.
Yeah, so the title, Interactive Learning with Buncee, comes from the title of our book, The Interactive Class. And we are just super passionate about creating lessons and activities and basically teaching and learning that is student-centered, that's relevant, that's engaging, and that really allows students to be participants of the class in a way that they feel like it's built around them, not just that they're dropped into it.
Right, our ultimate goal here is to make sure that the students are the producers of the content, not the consumers.
All right, so I have a feeling that a lot of people here today are avid Buncee users, but just in case they aren't, we kind of wanted to talk about why we love Buncee as a platform and why it's one that we so often share about. So when we look for interactive apps, and people ask us a lot, what are your top 3, or what are the ones you love to use in your class? We have to look for features that make them responsive and relevant, meaning that relevant to students in the way they learn, and then responsive in a way that students can create on them and share from them, and they're not just scrolling through or just taking it in, like you said, consuming something. So we've got a couple of features here. Now, this is not by any means the only features we use or why we like it, but some of the ones today that we're going to talk about specifically, and also with remote learning in mind. We tried to come up with some new ideas because we know we have a lot of people who follow us and watch often, but also try to come up with some things that you could do in your regular classroom or you could do it for remote learning. But the whole idea of today is community. So we have audio and YouTube and recorded video because we are going to talk a lot about that today. But obviously we love, I mean, you've got assessment tools, you've got text, there's so many good ones to use.
Yeah, you can't just pick one. There's so many good options here. But the point of this is that Buncee is an interactive tool. And so when students use tools specifically like Buncee, they're making content. And again, that's our ultimate goal here, is to make sure that they're the ones who are coming up and really diving into their learning and taking it to the next level.
And like a lot of other apps too, teachers can create in it as well. So it's like one of those double, like a coin, whichever you flip it, you can still use it.
Double-edged sword.
No, swords were too violent. I almost said it, but then I didn't. All right, so one of the things that we wanted to talk about first and foremost is accessibility. We find it really important to make sure that all students are included in their learning, that the learning environment is inclusive and it's equitable. And a lot of times, especially where we live, we see this with language. We have students who come from other countries. Often they're just dropped right into our classroom and they have a very hard time communicating. And Immersive Reader is a tool that really helps solve that problem for us. And it happens to be in Buncee.
Right, so if you're not familiar with Immersive Reader, it's a Microsoft tool that's naturally embedded directly into Buncee. So whenever you see that little book with the speaker icon on it, the students or families can click on that icon. The text that is there can be read aloud to that particular individual or group of individuals. And the cool thing about it, as Kristin was saying, you can actually have the text translated into, I don't even know how many languages.
50 or more. It keeps growing.
Yeah, it can have the whole document, or even just like a couple sentences or maybe a couple words, translated into whatever language they choose, and have it read aloud, which is
in real time. It also helps struggling readers. It's also really great for littles. So if you have kids who are working from home and they're 5 and 6 years old and they can't read yet, this feature is also really good for them. So it's kind of that idea of like the ramps at the grocery store. They may be there to help people in wheelchairs, but people with strollers, people push their carts over them. Everybody can use it in a different way. And that's kind of how we look at Immersive Reader. All right, so in our presentation, we are going to talk about community. And to us, there's kind of 3 big C's that we kept talking about as we brainstormed what community in the classroom would look like. And to us, it's being connected, having a way to communicate, and then collaborating together. And so we're going to start by looking at some of the features in Buncee that really allow us to do these things, because we know that for a lot of us, we're going to be starting school, not us, but us, going to be starting school remotely. And you can't teach children without having solid foundational relationships there. Like the relationships have to come first. And it's what we're seeing from people over and over again. How am I going to build this community with kids when I don't see them face to face? How am I going to connect to them? How are we going to collaborate? And so we're going to talk about some of those features.
Yeah, it's a tough question. There's not one right answer. So hopefully we can help you guys out a little bit with this. So let's look at the first one. This first option that you have here is something called Buncee boards. And if you're an avid Buncee user, you obviously know all about how awesome this feature is. Buncee board, think of it almost as a bulletin board where your students can come and put things onto it. And so it's like a digital version of a bulletin board. So your students would use Buncee to create some type of project or assignment, and then they would actually give that back to you by sharing it to you on a Buncee board.
Yeah, and so this is a great way to connect with your students. There's also a really powerful feature, which we had fun playing around with, which is the commenting. And as an educator, we really love how Buncee gives you options to toggle things on and off or to make it available. But you have the option of allowing students to comment to each other, almost like in a text or a chat-based forum on each of the Buncees that are there. You can also moderate the chat too to make sure that it's appropriate. But this then gives students not only a way to connect, but then they can almost, communicate with each other. And you could do this in really creative ways and what they're actually going to be talking about. I mean, you could do something as simple as, we call them glows and grows in my classroom, where things you like, things you could have worked on. You could give them a challenge. One of our favorite challenges on FlipGrid is like 2 truths and a lie content. You could have them create a project on something, and maybe they slip something in there, or they slip a slide that's not true about the content, and the kids have to go in and comment on each other, about finding the false fact in the science or the history or whatever it was. But we also like Buncee boards because then you can then share those Buncee boards out, because for authentic learning, for learning to be authentic, it has to be shared. It has to be able to go outside the walls of your classrooms. And if kids are just creating something and the teacher at best is the only one seeing it, it's no good.
Yeah, you're speaking my language there. So when you are looking to share outside of the 4 walls of your classroom, there are lots of options. You can obviously just share this Buncee link, or if you want to use something like SEESAW, you can definitely share right to SEESAW. We're going to talk a little bit more about that too later on, and even use tools like Wakelet. So those tools will work simultaneously with Buncee and using Buncee boards. And we'll talk more about those too.
So this one was important to me. I think it's a really simple feature, and I was trying, as we were developing this presentation, to come up with like some super cool way. And at the end of the day, being able to hear someone's voice is very powerful, and it's a way to connect with someone. A lot of us like to listen to books read aloud, or we like to listen to podcasts or things, because even in our own book we put in those videos so people could hear our voices and see who we were. And so the idea of being able to record audio directly into a Buncee has a lot of features. It allows kids to just press record and demonstrate their knowledge. And that right there is so powerful. Being able to explain to you in person why they did what they did or what they made. It's also really neat. Now, this is, I think, the very first Buncee that Marie ever shared with us. And it was of a child who wrote a story. And I believe by looking at the story, the child was like kindergarten, 1st grade. It was a primary student. And there was also actually really cool animations and stuff, but I had to screenshot it. But they put their audio, and that's what that little play button is. When you click it, you can hear, no, you can't click that one.
I know,
so over here trying to click the button. You can hear her little voice, reading the story. And I don't know who she is, I don't know where she was, but I instantly connected with her. And so even if our own students, think about how powerful it is if they're putting in their own audio to those to their Buncees and they share on the boards, and then the classmates can hear their voices and connect with them. That's super powerful.
Especially if you're a primary student, think about how much you grow in those primary years, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We see it with things like handwriting, right? So if you are working on a project, perhaps as a writing piece just like this, that small, tiny voice that's recorded at the beginning of the year, parents will really appreciate that, hearing that voice, and then how sweet it is. And then at the end of the year, when they've grown up so much, it's really eye-opening just to hear and see. You can hear the progress.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking man, I should have had this in the presentation. But it would even be really cool for primary sight words. Put your sight word boards up and put the words there, and then record your voice.
Yeah, I think I actually have that, and you deleted it.
No, you did not. Don't let him fool you. He is a big fat liar. But that idea
if you had
of just
a word wall,
or a word wall, or just something where they can hear your voice. I just think there's a lot of power in connecting in that way, and I didn't want to kind of breeze over the feature because I feel like sometimes you don't really talk about it because it's so simple. But I think it's simple but powerful.
I think I really did have that in there.
I don't think you did.
Oh wait, look, it was right there.
No, I guess you did. All right, so you could, but you said I took it out. So in all theory,
I put it back in.
Baloney. All right, so you could add on support with directions. I think that's also a really powerful way too. If you create an assignment for the kids and they're to work through the Buncee, maybe you assign it all out to them, just to hear your voice in different places.
And that is really important for remote learning, because they may not always have you at their whim, and they may not completely understand what was expected of that assignment. So having recorded directions on something would be very powerful.
And I think also sometimes we focus a lot with remote learning on video, and everything has to be video, and I don't think it always does. I know as a learner, if I was working on something and I had audio, I might actually prefer that, because then I'm able to look at what it is you're asking me to do, and I'm listening at the same time. So I don't know. I just see a lot of that. I think that's really good. Leaving hints or tips for students as they work is really awesome. You can use it to chunk things and break it into parts. And then, like you said, your word wall, dictation, explanations of a science theory. You could go on forever, but really it's just press record, share what you know.
Yeah.
Or what you've learned.
Right. And to monitor that and to keep track of the assignment. So.
All right, so video is another feature that Buncee offers that is great, and I wanted to kind of share a little example. I just created this really fast. It's probably not the best, but I wanted to get you the idea of, having a place where students can meet every day. A lot of classrooms are really used to the idea of morning meetings and just that time to gather. And so obviously for this presentation, I didn't click it. But if you scan the QR code, you can actually watch my video. And it's not a morning meeting video, but rather I think a video kind of explaining the things you could add to a morning meeting video. But I like the idea of like creating a board where you come every morning. Maybe it has the apps. You can see that they're linked. It has the apps linked to where you're going to like go for the day. So what they're going to use. Maybe there's like reminders, or you want to give shout outs to students for certain things. That virtual math manipulatives is actually linked to the Techie Teacher. It's just a great resource. But maybe you had a board for math, or you had a board for reading, or maybe your morning meeting board then links you outward. I just thought it was a really powerful way to kind of say, hey, this is where we're starting our day every day.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you have things hyperlinked out of the Buncee. And so when you go onto this Buncee, and by the way, tell them about the URL.
Oh, it's one of our favorites. The QR code.
No, the actual URL of Buncee's. You can update this, right?
Oh, yes. Not the links, but the actual Buncee URL. If you share it with your kids through a URL, the Buncee URL never changes. So if you gave them like the morning meeting copy code or whatever, that code would never change. Even if you're going in every day and changing the things on it, the link for them to get to it always remains the same, which is a really cool feature. I think I mentioned at the end of the presentation that we love about Buncee.
Yeah, so you can swap out those hyperlinks, and your students would always be going to the same place. So it's easier for them, and then you have access then to obviously more resources.
Yeah, and it's great like if you have to use a specific LMS, like if you have to use a Google Classroom or Canvas or something like that, Schoology, you can put that link to your morning meeting board, and you wouldn't have to update it. It's always going to stay the same. You just go update it in Buncee, and it's neat.
Yeah, it's so much more useful.
So then I started thinking, okay, well, how else could you use video in Buncee? And I thought of this really fun idea. Now, you can record videos right in Buncee. It's pretty straightforward. You just click and record, and it's a great platform for the students. But I also thought it'd be kind of fun, and I tested it out. That's what that other picture is, to see if it actually worked. So I did some of my teaching videos that needed like screen recording or needed me to write on it or in the FLIPGRID Shorts camera. And I thought, well, how cool would it be to bring them over into Buncee? I could also have my slide, my learning objective. I could technically write on it or add things on there. But then, even though the video's there, I could also add the FLIPGRID error code. And that's just fun because it draws it out and brings it, out to life. And it's just a fun way to connect with the students, to communicate with them. And if they can't scan the FLIPGRID error code, they can still watch the regular video. But it's just another way to kind of add that level of engagement and that personal feeling of being right there in the room with them.
And that's really hard to capture if you're in a remote learning setting. And so, these little tricks and tips like that will really help to kind of develop those relationships and to try to make that comfortable environment, that learning environment that you're trying to go for at the beginning of the year that normally you'd have no problem doing if you're in a classroom, but in some situations that's a little bit different. So this is a great way to do that. All right, so you want me to take this one?
Yes, take it away.
So this idea originally came from Jamie Donnelly, so shout out to her for this idea. You can actually, and if you're savvy with YouTube, this is going to be really easy for you. You can actually go and create a YouTube live video and embed that directly into your Buncee. It's actually really easy to do. All you need to do is start your YouTube live video on the YouTube site, and then when you go to open up your video on Buncee, you just paste that link, and then it will automatically have that ready to go. So when your students access the Buncee, when it goes live, they hit play, and then you are now live within that Buncee. So you might see where we're leading to if you're looking carefully at these images, because it will take you to perhaps a classroom.
Which we will talk about here in a little bit. But this is a great idea if you want to be a little bit more synchronous with your kids, whereas the morning meeting board that I shared a couple of slides over, it was more of an asynchronous since they are recorded. You could even put that live in your morning meeting board. So it's the same link and the kids are going in, but every day you're starting a new live link and you're live with them on that board and saying, hey, shout out to so-and-so, I really love how you do this. Don't forget this. Those are the apps we're going to be, and you could like talk to them. And I just think it'd be really cool.
And again, you can hyperlink out there. So those hyperlinks will open up in a new window. So if you're still live in Buncee and you say, okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on one of those icons. If they click on it, it's going to open in a new window. So they're still going to be able to hear your voice. You can continue teaching through that while they're still working in the new window that opens.
I have a question.
Yeah.
After you're all done with that, let's say that I'm the kid that slept in and I missed class.
That's about right.
Could you stop? I was being nice. Could have made it you. Could you then, because YouTube saves, so then you could then replace your YouTube Live with your saved video too.
Absolutely. If you have a student who missed it, it's going to be the same video. They're just going to watch it in a later time.
Might be too big depending on how long you go. You might have to link it instead of embed it because there is some size requirements.
No, it's not embedded. It gets automatically linked on there. So you should be good.
Oh, sweet.
So let's talk then about the next step.
So again, building community with students, trying to build and foster those relationships, and the idea of connecting with them, communicating with them, and collaborating with them. So we thought we'd throw down a few like lesson ideas or things that we made. I'm trying to think of what ones we put in. I think we made them all during remote learning, if not most of them, ourselves when we were remote learning with students and trying to come up with ways to interact and engage with them. And you may or may not use the exact example, but maybe it'll spark something, or maybe it'll take like the exact example. You never know.
And a lot of these, I think we have resources for.
I think we do.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning before, if you were paying attention to the images, you probably saw we were going with this. This is by far one of our most asked questions when we talk about Buncee.
It is one of our most looked at Buncee. No, it is the most looked at Buncee. What was it at? Like 10,000 or something crazy.
That might be too much. I don't know. But it's definitely the one we get asked about the most. And so those of you guys who have seen them floating around online, Bitmoji classrooms, right? They're pretty popular out right now. But the thing about using Buncee to make them, it is a one-stop shop.
So fast. Like you could make it in 15 minutes.
Like you don't need to go anywhere else. Buncee has everything that you need to create your virtual classroom with Bitmojis. And it's just super easy. It's just layering after another. And like I said before, you can add hyperlinks, and then they can link in and out of those particular images. You can also easily embed into things like Canvas or Schoology.
That's what we did in mine. We embedded ours into Canvas at the end of the year, and then the kids could click through. Since the link didn't change, since we had the last 2 weeks were a little bit more like gradual release, kids turning in their devices, and so we would just go in and edit them, but we didn't really change like the link. And then the next week it just kind of updated itself, and it was really nice. Kind of low-key way to talk to the kids. But I want to see like a level up here because I think I'm teaching in person next year. I don't really know. We're still a little bit in flux. But I love the idea of not only a Bitmoji classroom, but then like linking it to another Buncee. So you have your Buncee that's like maybe like your classroom.
Front of the room.
Or just a classroom, yeah, whatever. But then like you link it out to another Buncee that's like your math Buncee room, and then your science Buncee room, and then your reading Buncee room, and you could like link off into a couple different rooms. So then you could have like your little science lab where it's all your science resources and your videos and then you have your math room, and maybe they're similar in where things are placed, so it's easy for the kids to follow. But I think that'd be really cool to kind of like level up and start linking a Buncee to a Buncee, because you can totally do that with the link feature.
Yeah, and if you're wondering like, oh my gosh, this looks like it took forever to make, it really is not. If you look at that image carefully, I think there's there's 9 images on the apps, but there's 10, so 11, 12. There's only 13 items in that picture. So, I mean, it was really quickly just uploading them.
And you just search. I mean, the apps we did have to download, but other than that, you just search. And Buncee's done a really good job of asking. Like, I think one time we were talking, I was like, I need plants. I want a plant in my classroom. Or, I need some posters to hang on the wall. And, like, they're really good at adding different things. And so every time I go in, like, there's new things to add. And so it makes it so quick. I mean, I love on Google, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I've been playing around with that. It just takes a lot more time and having to search things and find them where this is all more one place. And I think you could even do some really cool things with the kids creating something, whether they create their own house. I don't know if I'd go there because I want to keep it equitable and a safe space. But even if they create their own ending to a book, or they could have fun with it too. And I think you could have fun teaching them how to link things out, like you can do like an all about me, where they like link things out, and maybe instead of a room, it's like a phone or it's apps or something fun.
Yeah, and if you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, I have no idea how it even gets started, we have a blog post that's there for you if you want to scan that. And on top of that, we also have some free templates that you can download, and then you can just add in your own content and swap it out.
Yeah, your Bitmoji, of course.
Yeah, your Bitmoji. I don't think you want this guy on yours. So.
No. Upgrade.
Hey. So this leads us to virtual classrooms. And just like Bitmoji classrooms, you can continue to add all these different things into your virtual classroom. And some of the things that you can find in Buncee, they're super fun. Couches, beanbags, rugs, clocks. Plants, yeah, chairs, globes. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can search for. And you can find them all within Buncee without ever having to leave. Now, the other cool thing is smartboard. You can find a smartboard, right? Slap that right up on the wall there, and then you can record a video in Buncee, and now you have your morning announcements.
Yeah, or I'm thinking even if you've redone this and put like a big, they can't see me as I'm pointing. You put like my morning meeting board. You could put that on the wall and link it so the kids click it and know that that's where they go to their morning meeting. And you can add labels and stuff to the kids too, which actually be great because an immersive reader would read it to them if they were having trouble knowing where things were. But like you could even like have like a recess slide where they go and do something just fun activities. I mean, like the options.
So now hopefully the gears are clicking, and you might be thinking, wait a minute, I remember a couple slides back you were talking about YouTube Live. Guess what? You could actually put a YouTube Live video right onto your smartboard, and now you have a classroom live.
Yeah, and that'd be a great way. Another question we're getting a lot from people is, how am I going to teach people these apps? How am I going to teach the kids remotely how to use it? This would be a great platform. You go into the YouTube Live, and the kids come into this classroom, and let's just say you had it linked out to other rooms. You could say live, okay, guys, I want you to find the speaker on the wall that says attention. That's where all of our announcements are going to be. Can you click it and see what was the announcement I left you today? And like the kids could do it, and then I want you to look on the bookcase and can you find the math book? Can you find the reading book? It's red, and you could like literally walk them through how to kind of like navigate through the classroom that you set up.
Yeah, and so anytime that you hyperlink something on a Buncee, and when you go to share it, you'll notice that there's that little link icon. Teach your students to look for that, and that way they know that if they click on that, there's additional content there that they can interact with. And that way you can continue to add those and add more features right into your Buncee.
It's a super cute room. I like this one.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so.
This is my favorite, and I just have to tell you, we had a very unique learning opportunity this year for remote learning. And I'm going to be on the positive side because I could also look at it and be very sad about how school ended. But this year we had the opportunity to we have two boys. And we had them both in our classes simultaneously. So our first grader was in his class and our fourth grader was in my class. And we got to learn with them throughout the year. So that then when remote learning came, we also got to learn with them as our teachers at home, which was hard at times. But the parent in me, when I would often sit down with our younger child and do his work, missed some of the things in the classroom. And this activity was so fun for him. And I got to watch him as a parent, because he doesn't really clue me in what he does. So I didn't know what was coming. But like, it was so engaging and so fun. And I thought it was a really neat idea. So I had to say that. Now you can share.
So we were working on map skills, and again, first grade. So, it can be rather dry for a 6 and 7 year old.
Or when you have to do it for 3 weeks.
Or when you have to do it for quite some time. So we were trying to really up the game here. So I created this Buncee, and this was basically a map. And what I did was I added different hyperlinks all throughout the map. Then you'll notice that there's a start here and there's a video on the bottom. Well, that video on the bottom gave them all the steps that they needed to follow to find. It's kind of like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Well, like,
but it was, where is Mr. Merrill hiding? And so what they would do is they would listen back to those instructions, press pause after each instruction.
If they were, or try to listen to all of them and do them all at once.
And if they did, they clicked a lot of the wrong links, and I could see how many people were clicking the wrong links.
That's so good.
Yeah, I know. So I told them in the video to make sure that they only clicked and then paused, so make sure they
So like cardinal directions, though, right? Like it's like go north on First Street.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think I said, okay, let's start by going east on Panther Avenue. Now let's make a south turn south onto, I think it was Market Street.
Okay.
So on and so forth. And so what I would do then is I would go through the set of directions, and the kids would pause it. And if they think they found the right place, they would click on the link icon, and if they got it right, it opened up to like the celebration Buncee that said like, "You've got it, you found me," and it had like a picture of me that they had rescued or whatever. Or if they got it wrong, it said, "Sorry, nice try. I think you might need to go back and listen to that last set of instructions." So it was just a really fun way for them to get engaged with this and to learn a little bit more about using cardinal directions. And again, we have a blog post up on this. We also have the template for this if you'd like to try to
which
do
is
this.
so nice because it does take some time to build. And I will say he was able to integrate he's being very modest, some of the other really cool features in Buncee. I believe Mr. Merrill was found somewhere in the city. And when the kids clicked on him, he used the 3D image and asked them, "Where do you think I am?" I think it was New York City, but they didn't know that.
It was Chicago.
Was it Chicago?
Oh,
I didn't
boy.
get that. We didn't get that far.
Even though Buncee is in New York, I should have
maybe it is. But like it showed the big city, and then you could even like embed a writing topic off of that, like what do you see, or build off of that. I also really liked the idea too of how he was able to like personalize it, and he had all the other things they had learned, like the key legend, but he could also share it with his team. So no one watching this would know, but a lot of the names on the little key are people from our school. So it was generic enough that if you spent this time building it, you could then share it out, and all of the kids could go and maybe just change the one link of where the teacher is, and then it's their teacher popping out. And the idea that we can share and we can collaborate as teachers is also really important to remember during remote learning. We often, and I'm going on a little side tangent here, but I think it's important. We often get this idea that like we created something, and I think full rights are to be given to someone when they create something, but this idea of like an ownership to it. And we fully believe, as do a lot of other educators, that we need to be there for each other. We need to share.
Especially now,
because yes, maybe Mr. Merrill took a long time. He took a long time building this, but if he shares this with even one other educator, and they take it and they adapt it, and their kids have a fun and interactive and engaging lesson remotely, how cool is that? Like that's 30 more kids that have had a really just special learning. Now, and I don't know, I really love how you can collaborate and share, and I think that we as educators really should use those features to do that.
And I will say though that you will have those kids that just want to see what their vice principal house looks like, and they click on that, and then they get really disappointed when it says, "Sorry, that was the wrong."
But can you explain to them how you could tell who was clicking where too? Because I think that's really
cool. So you can't exactly tell exactly who is clicking on it, but because Buncee does keep track of who's how many views and stuff is on the Buncee, I could see how many incorrect responses were being recorded, and I'm proud to say that there were very few incorrect responses.
Well, they could. But I'm thinking too, that could also allow you, let's say like everyone was ending up on the little house on 2nd Avenue. You could be like, "Wow, where are my kids making the wrong turn?
Right.
Where, like, could I go back and address that the next day? Was it my directions? Could we have a discussion about it later?" And that's kind of a cool way to look at it too.
Yeah, so again, we have the blog post there for you, and the template is available if you'd like to check it out. By all means, download
share
that.
Share it and use it, and
share it
hopefully
again.
have interactive lessons. All right, so this is a really awesome idea that we've been touting on Buncee forever. We love that Buncee allows you to change the size and the dimensions of your design. If you've read the interactive class book that we wrote, you'll know that Mr. Merrill had a different occupation before he was a teacher. Well, almost. And he was, we're not going to that story, but he almost graduated as a graphic designer. And so he loves to design and make things look great for kids. But as teachers, we know that we have a lot of other things going on, and a lot of us aren't awesomely great at design and making things look nice. And Buncee solves that problem. And so we always tell teachers who are looking to start designing things for their classroom, whether it be postcards or labels or bookmarks or presentations or whatever it is, start in Buncee, because they make it so easy to have things look so awesome and professional. And so postcards are really fun. Like I have postcards that I designed, and I have them printed every year. And at the beginning of every year, they're blank, and I leave them on the table, and the kids address them. And then throughout the year, I fill them out when I see them doing really cool things or just accomplishing things that I want to acknowledge or just want to say I enjoy having in my class. And then I write on them and I send them in the mail. Well, with remote learning, that could be a little bit harder. So I thought, okay, you could maybe you send them before the kids come. You could either pre-write them and print them off and send them to the kids like snail mail, like actually send them one, or you can send them digitally, because you can send everything now through email or links, and you could personalize it.
Embed it.
you can embed it. Yeah, you could, but I mean, you want to send it to them personally. Now, I guess if you had like a Google Classroom, you could put it in messages. I mean, it just would be a really fun way to get to know your kids. Now, I put the Bitmojis on there because I was still on the Bitmoji train and I was having fun with that. But they have also some really cool, animations and just another way. We're trying to connect with our students. We want them to understand that we care about them and that we're excited to see them. And this is a simple way, that we can do it pretty efficiently, I think.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying about the design stuff. So like we mentioned before, Buncee's a one-stop shop. I mean, you won't need to go anywhere else to find some of the things to make this look good. And so it's really easy to work within, and you can create something that looks amazing without having to go anywhere. So it's a huge benefit.
Okay, so for the second half of this presentation, we kind of want to talk a little bit too about app smashing. Because Buncee not only is such a great platform, but what also makes it really important, vital, I don't know, is its ability to smash with other apps. You can use it. They don't close their windows and say, oh, this is only, you can only use stuff in Buncee and that's it. It's really just meshes nicely. There's no other way to say it. And it helps us increase our collaboration or our community or our connection. And if we're not able to do something quite one way, we can toss it somewhere else.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with app smashing, basically the way that it works is you create something in one app, and then you take that and you download that onto either a device or your hard drive, wherever it might be, and then you upload that into another app. And so if you've sent an email, you've app smashed before, right? Because we've all sent pictures and stuff back and forth. That's app smashing. So it really is just that simple. It doesn't need to be like this really complex process that some people think that it is. And the kids, this is their language. They get it, right? Working and collaborating, that's what they're all about. And so the ability to have apps that do this is really important to us, and Buncee definitely delivers. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the different things that you can use for app smashing.
All right, so Buncee and FLIPGRID, you can app smash a couple different ways. So during remote learning, one of the things I did is I had my kids create in Buncee. They had an assignment. They already knew how to get in and log in. And there's also a really cool feature. Gosh, I should have put it in here. I'm thinking of it as I'm going, where you can change all of the kids' passwords to the same thing, which was awesome during remote learning because, there was all these kids who all of a sudden had been using these things forever, and they just so happened to forget all their passwords and couldn't get on anything and whatever. So I was able to batch the password until all the kids, your login is your student number, here's the password, get on. And they easily got on and created. And then because there's a shareable link, instead of sharing the link on the Buncee board, they were able to go to FLIPGRID and talk about their project. They can expand on it. They can debate, depending on what the project is. But then there's a link. The very last screen, people always miss this. When you go to submit your video, it says your name, your title, and then your link. And you just click it. And then what happens, and whether it's a response or a reply in FLIPGRID, there's a little icon. Now, I'll tell you, it looks like a globe. It won't.
No, this one.
This one looks like a Buncee?
Yep.
Oh, good. The one we just did was a globe. And it'll be right there in the, I don't know which way I'm on this camera, on the right-hand corner of their video. And at any time you can click it and it takes you right to the project. So then they were able to share out, and a little bit different than Buncee boards. The kids could see them, talk to them, whatever, and then go see their work.
The other side of that is on the educator dashboard when you're on FLIPGRID, there's a spot for focus where you can add different content, and one of the options is Buncee. And the cool thing about that is live embed. So whenever you have a Buncee that you put onto there, you just paste that link right into the focus, and then when you go to present that to the students, or when they go to see it, they're going to have that live feed of that Buncee right there. So
yeah, it's not a thumbnail. They
yeah.
just click it and it pops up in the FLIPGRID, and then everything moves and works. And it'd be such a great way, I think, to kick off a lesson, because this is in your topic focus. So instead of you leaving them a video, they could see this, but you could still have your video in your Buncee too. You could rework this, so you still have the video, but it's in your Buncee. And then you could even have up to 10 attachments on FLIPGRID, so you could have a whole day's worth of lessons if you really wanted all in one place, or for that subject. I mean, I get on and rant.
Bathroom, science
when I think
room.
of all the different things you could do, but some of the things when you put them on FLIPGRID, they become a static image or an icon, and Buncee does not, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So Buncee and SEESAW is a great way to pair up things together and deliver content to families at home. As we all know, it's really important to keep our families in the loop, especially with remote learning, because it's really hard if you're a parent at home or if you're a family member at home trying to work with a child and you aren't exactly sure of what the expectations are and you don't know what the assignments might be, it's going to be even more challenging and especially frustrating. So when you use tools like Buncee and SEESAW together, that can really alleviate a lot of stress.
Yeah, so SEESAW is basically a portfolio app, and now it's really like a learning management lesson assigning.
It could be its own LMS.
Portfolio. It really could now, because they just came up with some ridiculous updates that I honestly haven't even had a chance to like thumb through all of them. But what we really like about SEESAW is that it has this component, one of the many components on it, where the parents can log in on their own through their own app and see just their kids' work.
Well, they don't even need to have the app.
They don't have to, but I'm saying that's how we use it. And so we liked it because we could drop FLIPGRID, Buncee, anything else we were doing into that app, and the parents would be emailed and notified and could get on, which is a little bit easier than sometimes going through the LMS or asking your kids for their login. And so we had already been using it. So when remote learning started, it made the transition very much easier, but Buncee integrates very well with it.
Yeah, so to do this, all you have to do is copy the share link from your Buncee. It could be any student's Buncee. Copy that link, open up SEESAW in a different tab, and then when you go to add that student response, you just paste that as a link, and then all of a sudden you can tag the students, and there you go. Now that parent has just been notified about that particular assignment.
And they can see their work, and it makes it authentic. I can't tell you enough. I don't know if I can say it without like tearing up, but one of the stories over remote learning, a very sweet child in my class, his father was in, I believe it was the Army Reserves, and he got called in to go work in New York. And we were probably a month through remote learning before I even realized he was gone. And he was gone for like 12 or 16 weeks. And we created something in Buncee, and I shared it into SEESAW, and I got a message, because the parents can message you privately on that platform as well, thanking me, because by putting it in there, his dad was able to see it from far away. He was able to talk to him about it on the phone and share it with him, even though he wasn't there. And it was hard for this child. It was very emotional for his dad not to be with him. And when she told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, like you forget sometimes in the midst of grading and creating and being there and FaceTiming and Zoom, those connections, those how we build community with our families and how they build community with each other and share it. And I just think that link in Buncee being able to share out is so powerful, that whether you use SEESAW, whether you put an email, whether you put it wherever you put it, to make sure that you're sharing it out.
Yeah, make sure somebody else sees it. I totally agree. So this is another feature that's pretty easy to use. NEARPOD is a presentation app that a lot of educators use, especially in remote learning, because you can deliver presentations and content in a group setting, and you can do it instantly and automatically.
Yeah, you can do it like live. You can do it student paced mode. They just have some really cool updates that just came out. I haven't checked them out about videos.
Yeah. And so what's really cool is if you are building a NEARPOD presentation, you can actually put your own Buncee right into the presentation. And when you go to click onto that, it opens up. It looks like it opens up in a brand new window, but it actually opens up and hovers above the NEARPOD presentation. So it's not actually, they don't actually leave the app for it. It just kind of pulls it out. Because I guess that'd be like a pull-out. And then links and everything work on there. Now, if they did click on the links there, then it would actually take them to an external source, like on Safari or Chrome or whatever browser they might be using. But it's just a really cool way to get your Buncee into another place. And the cool thing about NEARPOD is, as you're working through a presentation, if you're doing it in a class setting where it's a live presentation, when you're clicking through the slides, it's going to move all of the presentation for anyone who's logged onto that. So when you've moved over to the time where you're supposed to be getting onto Buncee, you click it, and then the Buncee opens. And then when it's time to move on, you click the next arrow, and then it takes it off for everybody, and then they can move on. So
or you can asynchronously work on it, and they can see how far. I like that too. You can see how far kids got. But I like this idea, because if you let's say you link to science room, and you already have your science textbook and your science classroom, but you're doing a lesson in NEARPOD specific on. Why link it again? Like, why not just pull up your Buncee and say, hey, go to our science textbook, click it, and then move on. Like, it saves time. You're not doing the same thing in different places.
Yeah, and that's really, that's the ultimate goal is doing remote learning, is try to save as much time and the amount of instructions that you're putting out.
I agree. So Buncee and OneNote, I have to say, if we have any middle, high school teachers, I don't use OneNote as much in my primary classroom, but because of this, I may have to. This is
the coolest.
This is so cool. Go ahead. I know you want to take it.
No, well, this is just really neat to me because this is a true live embed. So as students
This is the computer nerd in him talking.
So as students are working on Buncee projects, they can actually share the links with you. And if you have a class OneNote, or they can drop them in themselves. Once they paste that link, the Buncee appears on the OneNote. But then if you get like a class set of them, for example, then you can have them all updating in real time. So as the kids are working on it, the changes will appear. It's super neat to be able to watch it, especially if you're in remote learning, because then you can see what the kids are doing while they're supposed to be doing it.
Well, they also have this idea of collaborating and adding to something. And so you could drop it. There's an infinite canvas. So kids could write in there ideas like, what if you tried this or add this? Or, they could use it to like help each other build a project or build a Buncee together, where someone's, in there changing it, where everyone else is commenting on the changes. You could do something where the teacher drops it in and then they're learning off of it, like maybe in a math setting or something, where they can flip through and they can see the teacher's videos or the problems, or whatever. But then on the actual OneNote, they're able to work out the problems, see each other's work, and those kind of. And there's also other features in OneNote that you could use in that infinite canvas along with the Buncee.
Yeah, it's really neat.
The shorts camera too, right?
I believe so.
I believe the shorts camera's even in there, so you could even like add videos. It's just, there's a lot of possibilities with this one.
Yeah. Speaking of a lot of possibilities,
I like this one. So I use Teams. Teams was my saving grace during remote learning. We did have an LMS and it was great, but my kids had already been working on Teams in the classroom, so it was an easy way to kind of transition them out during remote learning. But I'm trying to think of how to say this politically correct. One of the hardest things I found during remote learning, and if I could see the chat, I could say, give me a thumbs up if you felt the same way, was that my kids knew how to do things pretty well, but my parents struggled. And they struggled with the different apps and how to use them because they hadn't been using them all year, but the kids had. And I think sometimes the kids took advantage of that a little bit. But dealing with the parents, trying to keep things as central as I could. And so the integration with Buncee and Teams is that you can literally put it in a tab. So right when they go into Teams, they can have that Buncee tab. And when you click it, the presentation you can see in the image on the right takes almost the whole screen of Teams, and it's right there. And they can click through the links themselves. So that would just save you the step of having to say log into your Buncee. Because then the parents are like, well, I can't remember my Buncee code, and I can't remember. So if it was all in one place, that just makes things much more streamlined, more time efficient. You can do your meets or whatever you call it.
I was going to say, speaking of saving time, you can actually schedule your own Teams class meets in Buncee. So you can schedule it out ahead of time and include the Buncee link on that, and it's just all in one spot.
I just think this is a really cool integration, and it really helped me streamline things that I needed to get to them without having to take them out. And not like it was a big deal, but passwords were like the bane of my existence the first couple of weeks in learning. And so it was just really nice to be able to go to Teams. It's on there in the tab. All right, so Buncee and Wakelet. So I think this is our last integration. And there's lots of different ways you could do this. But what we really like about Wakelet is this idea that they've just released recently of collaboration. And the idea that it can curate things and it can keep track of things, but it can also kind of simulate this chat board / collaboration platform. And so you can integrate Buncees right onto the Wakelets, which again, they click in their live, like right in the Wakelet, which is just mind-blowing. So you could use it to launch a lesson as a teacher, or the kids could add to it, because in this collaboration feature, when you have it turned on through Wakelet, kids can go in and add things, but they can't delete anything of everybody else. So it's a little bit different than like the hyperdocs or sometimes when you add like slides and then like, you magically just lost a slide. No one knows who did it. And, they can't take anything away from anyone else. They can just add, but you as a teacher can then go in and take things away. So you could almost create lessons, flip ideas, but where you've got the Buncees as part of that integration, and then kids are adding things in through the shorts camera from FLIPGRIDs on Wakelet. You can add text, you can add PDF, you can add images, live links, and so the kids can help curate based on whatever their activity is.
Yeah, so there's a lot of options here, especially with that shorts camera thrown in there to the mix too. I mean, that's 3 different apps that you have working together. Just think about that
in
for a second.
Platform.
So, in one platform, yeah. So that's exactly what we're talking about when we say that, this is what the kids do now. This is what's ingrained into their heads. And so, meeting them where they are and finding new engaging ways, especially in remote learning situations.
Yeah, and since Buncee is the creation tool, if you want to do everything on Wakelet and house newsletters and almost create like a Wakelet website, kind of a place for class, Buncee works in there. If you're really, comfortable with FLIPGRID, Buncee and FLIPGRID work together. If you like SEESAW better, like Buncee is the creation. So you can have your students creating and any of those other platforms together and limit the amount of programs they have to learn, but they also can make each other stronger with the shared features. And I just have to end with this because I just think it's so powerful that this URL doesn't change. We talked about you could create a newsletter in Buncee and update it every week and just give the parents, give them a magnet that says, scan here for updates from our class and put it on the fridge. But that QR code, it's going to take them to the same Buncee every single time, but it's not going to change even though you're changing it. And there's a lot of, I like that.
That's powerful.
And it's all translated with Immersive Reader.
Yeah. So, thank you so much. I mean, let me go back over here because we were kind of run through this blind a little bit, but thank you so much for tuning in. We had a blast hanging out with you guys. Hopefully this was not too quick for everybody. But if you have questions afterwards or you think to yourself like, oh man, I wish I would have asked them that, by all means, please reach out to us. We're everywhere on social media at the Merrills EDU, 2 R's, 2 L's, because
I hate this joke because there's 2 of us, so 2 R's, 2 L's.
And if you are more comfortable with email, just go on out to our website, www.themerrillsedu.com, and there's a contact form on there. Reach out to us that way. We'd love to connect with you.
Before we start sharing our screen, though, we have an interactive giveaway that we have to do. So can you go up to the Wheel of Names and spin it?
I have to
share
that. So no, I've got to. 1 second.
Fail.
Yeah, I know.
In the meantime, that was amazing. I love your energy. I don't even know if you knew I was here. But oh my gosh, you guys are so filled with ideas. I mean, truthfully, we covered all of the questions, but I mean, more so than anything, everyone's just really enthusiastic about all of the ideas that you guys shared. But yes.
Oh, that's so great. All right, so let's click it. Let's spin and see what prize. I believe you said, Etta, that they're going to announce them at 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, so what this is if you had registered for the session, we are picking a random daily giveaway, and it looks like whoever wins is actually going to get Buncee for schools for up to 5 hours. So so we'll be announcing the winner for this session giveaway at 8 p.m. today, so just stay tuned. But again, honestly, thank you so much for, 1, your energy, but 2, all of the different ideas that you shared. I think everyone can agree, too, that they're going back to the classroom or to the virtual classroom with a lot of different takeaways. And so with that, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. But more than anything, everyone's just sharing their thanks for you guys.
Oh, that's so kind. It's so great to be able, we are so floored over and over every day by all the people and all the educators that we get to connect with and share ideas with. And people, this is the kind of stuff that encourages us, like seeing these ideas and the encouragement of others, it helps us get sometimes through those days where we're like, man, this is hard work, being educator is hard work. And so we love the platform, and we think like you saw us as we're talking, like, oh, we could have done this or we could have done this. Like there's so many different ways to use Buncee, and I think the best way is to just use it. Get on every day and build something. Often we think that you have to make these big presentations. No, you can create one-slided kinds of things, but just get on, and the more you use it. The other thing that you probably should have talked about, but we didn't, is the Ideas Lab. Go to the Ideas Lab. There's a lot of really cool templates and things already there for people to kind of start with. And then the more you use it, then those ideas will start coming like, oh, I could have done it there. I could make it this way. And then you'll start being able to integrate it more.
I did see a great question come down from Kendra. She asked, can you use green screen to place yourself into the classroom using Buncee? And the answer is yes, you could. You'd have to be kind of tech savvy to do that, but you'd have to use some type of green screen video platform that would remove the background. And then I'm not sure actually how that would work. You'd have to layer yourself. So you would have to save your Buncee as a PNG or file, probably PNG rather than PDF, and then upload that as the background into your green screen.
So the steps in the book that we use would still work. You just would create the image before dropping it.
Correct.
We also just put out a blog too if you wanted. It wouldn't be as long as a doing, but we did just put on the blog. We got so much about the the Buncee Bitmoji Classrooms that we found a great app where you can kind of create these short little GIFs of yourself too. So you can, like, we wrote a blog about that, about how after you create your classroom in Buncee, how to drop those in, and you can like be accentuating something or pointing to something or welcoming them. And we have that on our blog too, that you can go check that out.
Yeah, and that's honestly amazing. You guys are so filled with different resources that we'll be sharing all of that afterwards in the follow-up message. But in the meantime, I'm really glad everyone had the chance to tune into you two. You two are such a source of inspiration and just many different things that we could really get inspired with. And so with that, to sort of close this session here, as you notice on the bottom of the screen here, you do get a certificate for attending the session. So just put that URL. It's a bit.ly /Buncee day 1-2, and we dropped it in the comments here, but we'll leave it open for the next few hours. So let us know that you're here, and we'll be able to forward you the certificate as well as any of the resources shared by our friends at the Merrills here. But yeah. And then in terms of the giveaway, so thanks for joining in the fun conversation on social. We'll be selecting the winners for both that hoodie as well as the other Buncee for Schools account. I know now we're announcing 2 additional Buncee for Schools account, but definitely stay tuned for that. We'll announce it at 8 p.m.
You're welcome, whoever wins, because that's probably the best prize on there. I'm so excited for that. I can't wait to go see what people's takeaways are. I'm going to be like scrolling all night. And reach out anytime to everybody. If anyone has any questions, we're here.
All right, and with that, thank you so much, everyone. Bye, and stay tuned for our next session at 6 p.m. We'll be talking about how to use Buncee as a tech coach. So if you're interested, stay tuned, and you'll find it on the Buncee YouTube channel. All right.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.